A poor woman was humiliated in front of an entire town, but one silent cowboy stepped forward, and what he did next changed everything. The cowboy who refused to look away. The empty basket. The wind carried dust through the narrow street, swirling around boots, wagon wheels, and tired faces. It was the kind of evening that made everything feel heavier, the sky painted in orange and ash, as if the sun itself was too tired to shine. Clara Hayes stood on the wooden porch of the general store, her hands gripping the handle of an empty basket. Her dress was worn, not torn enough to draw pity, but just enough to show the truth: life had not been kind to her. "Please," she said softly, her voice barely rising above the creak of the sign overhead. "I'll pay you back. I always do." The storekeeper didn't even look at her this time. "I said no, Clara. You already owe more than you can repay. I just need a little flour, maybe some beans. No credit." The words hit harder than a slap. Inside, a few townsfolk pretended not to listen. Outside, silence stretched between Clara and the man who had once greeted her with kindness. Now, he just waved her off. "Move along. You're blocking the entrance." Clara lowered her eyes. Slowly, she stepped off the porch. Her boots touched the dusty ground, and for a moment, she just stood there. Not moving, not crying, just empty. Across the street, a man watched. He leaned beside his horse, one hand resting on the saddle, the other hanging loosely by his side. His name was Daniel Reed. Most people in town didn't know much about him. He kept to himself, spoke only when necessary, worked hard, paid in cash, and disappeared before trouble found him. But he saw everything, and right now, he saw Clara. He saw the way her shoulders sank, not dramatically, not loudly, but in a quiet, defeated way that said this wasn't the first time. He saw the basket, empty. He saw the way people looked away, pretending not to notice. That's what bothered him the most. Clara started walking. Step by step, she moved down the street, her eyes fixed on the ground. The world around her blurred into noise, laughter from the saloon, the clatter of hoofs, the distant shout of a man calling for whiskey. None of it mattered. All she could think about was the small cabin waiting for her, and the hunger that waited inside it. She hadn't eaten since yesterday. And tonight didn't look any different. "Ma'am." The voice stopped her. Clara hesitated. Slowly, she turned. The cowboy stood a few steps behind her now. Tall, dust-covered, hat low over his eyes. His horse snorted softly beside him. "You dropped something," he said. Clara frowned. She looked down at her basket. "It's empty," she replied quietly. Daniel took a step closer. "I noticed." There was no mockery in his voice. No pity either. Just truth. Clara straightened slightly, trying to hold onto what little dignity she had left. "I'll manage," she said. "I always do." Daniel studied her for a moment. Most people would have walked away. Most people did. But he didn't. Instead, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small cloth pouch. The faint clink of coins could be heard. Clara's eyes widened slightly. "I can't take that," she said immediately. "I didn't offer it." She blinked, confused. Daniel nodded toward the end of the street. "Come with me." Her grip tightened on the basket. "I don't even know you." "That's fair." A pause. Then he added, calmly, "But I know hunger when I see it." Clara hesitated. Everything in her life had taught her one thing: nothing came for free. Not kindness, not help, not even a simple meal. "There's always a cost," she said quietly. Daniel met her gaze. Not this time. The wind picked up again, lifting dust between them. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Daniel turned, adjusting the reins of his horse. "I'm heading to my place," he said over his shoulder. "Got more food than I need." He paused. "You can take some. No debt, No questions. Clara didn't move. You coming? He added. Are you planning to argue with an empty stomach all night? Something in his tone wasn't forceful. It wasn't soft either. It was steady, real. Clara looked down at her basket again. Still empty. Her stomach twisted painfully, reminding her of the truth she was trying to ignore. Slowly, reluctantly, she took a step forward. Then another. Daniel didn't smile. He just nodded once, as if he expected it. He began walking, leading his horse down the dusty road that stretched beyond the town. Clara followed at a distance. Not too close, not too far. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows behind them. After a few minutes, Clara spoke. Why are you doing this? Daniel didn't look back, because someone should have done it sooner. The town faded behind them. Ahead lay open land, quiet, uncertain. Clara tightened her grip on the basket. For the first time that day, it didn't feel quite as heavy. The man with no past. The road out of town stretched long and quiet, the noise of the saloon and busy streets fading into nothing but wind and distant echoes. Clara walked behind Daniel, her steps cautious. Every instinct told her to turn back. Not because of him, but because of life. Life had taught her that hope often came dressed as disappointment. The sky darkened into deep shades of purple and gold as they reached a narrow trail leading toward a small piece of land tucked between low hills. A cabin came into view. Simple, weathered, but standing strong. A wooden fence leaned slightly to one side, and a lantern hung near the door, already lit, as if Daniel had expected to return before sunset. Clara slowed her steps. This is yours? She asked. Daniel nodded. Ain't much, he said. But it's enough. He tied his horse to a post and walked toward the door, pushing it open without hesitation. Then he stepped aside. Go on. Clara hesitated again. You're not worried? She asked quietly. Letting a stranger walk into your home? Daniel shrugged. If you meant harm, you would have taken the money instead. That answer disarmed her. Slowly, she stepped inside. The cabin was clean, not fancy, not decorated, but cared for. A small wooden table sat near the center, with 2 chairs. A stove in the corner still held warmth from earlier use. Shelves lined the wall, stocked with jars, dried goods, and neatly folded supplies. Food. Real food. Clara's breath caught slightly. She hadn't seen this much in one place in a long time. Daniel walked past her and set a small sack on the table. Sit, he said. She didn't argue this time. Her legs felt weak anyway. Without another word, Daniel began moving around the cabin with quiet efficiency. He poured water into a pot, added beans, a bit of salt, and set it over the fire. The simple sound of cooking filled the room. Clara watched him carefully. You live alone? She asked. Yeah. No family. A pause. Daniel stirred the pot slowly. Not anymore. Something in his tone made Clara stop asking. It wasn't anger. It wasn't sadness. It was something deeper, something settled. Like a wound that had already scarred over. Minutes passed in silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. For the first time in days, Clara felt safe. The smell of food grew stronger. Her stomach betrayed her with a quiet growl. Daniel glanced at her briefly. Don't worry, he said. It's almost ready. She gave a small, embarrassed nod. When the food was done, he filled a bowl and placed it in front of her. No ceremony, no speech, just a simple act. Eat. Clara stared at the bowl. For a moment, she didn't move. Then, slowly, she picked up the spoon. The first bite hit her like a memory. Warm, real, comforting. Her eyes filled slightly, but she blinked the tears away quickly and kept eating. Faster this time, like someone afraid the food might disappear if she didn't. Daniel didn't interrupt. He just sat across from her, quiet. quietly eating his own portion. After a while, Clara slowed down. "I don't know how to thank you," she said softly. "You don't have to. But you don't," he repeated, gently but firmly. She looked at him, really looked this time. There was something different about him. Not just quiet, not just kind, but distant, like a man who had seen too much and decided not to talk about it. "You said someone should have helped me sooner," Clara said carefully. "Why does it matter to you?" Daniel leaned back slightly in his chair. For a moment, he didn't answer. The fire crackled between them. Finally, he spoke. "Because I remember what it's like." Clara frowned slightly. He nodded. "Long time ago." She waited. And this time, he didn't stop her curiosity. "I had a family," Daniel said slowly. "A small place. Not much different from this." His eyes drifted toward the fire. "Bad winter came. Crops failed. Money ran out." Clara listened, unmoving. "I went into town," he continued, "same as you did today." A pause. "I asked for help." The silence in the room grew heavier. "And?" Clara asked quietly. Daniel's jaw tightened slightly. "No one helped." Clara's grip on the spoon tightened. "They turned you away." He nodded once. "Every single one." The fire popped sharply. For a moment, neither spoke. "What happened?" Clara whispered. Daniel looked at her then. Not distant this time. Not guarded. Just honest. "I buried them before spring." The words hit like a storm. Clara's breath caught. I'm so sorry," she said. Daniel gave a small shake of his head. "Don't be." A pause. "They didn't mean harm." Clara frowned. "But they let your family starve." "Yeah." Another pause. "But sometimes people don't help, not because they're cruel." He looked down at his hands. "They just think someone else will." Clara felt something shift inside her. A painful understanding. Daniel leaned forward slightly. "That's why I don't wait anymore," he said. "If I see it, I fix it." Clara looked down at her empty bowl. For the first time in a long time, it wasn't empty. "Thank you," she said again, more quietly this time. Daniel nodded once. Outside, the wind softened. The night settled gently around the cabin. But inside, something had changed. Not just hunger. Something deeper. Something that neither of them fully understood yet. After a while, Clara spoke again. "Just for tonight?" she asked carefully. Daniel looked at her. "You can stay," he said. "There's an extra bed." Clara hesitated, then nodded. "Just for tonight." Daniel stood and moved toward the door, glancing out into the dark. "Get some rest," he said. "Tomorrow, we'll figure things out." Clara lay down that night under a roof that didn't feel like it might collapse. Her stomach full, her mind quiet, but her heart wasn't the same. Because for the first time in a long while, someone had seen her, and didn't look away. The town that watched. Morning came quietly. Soft light slipped through the cracks in the wooden walls, resting gently across Clara's face. For a moment, she didn't move. She wasn't used to waking up like this. Warm, safe, fed. Then reality returned. She sat up quickly, her eyes scanning the small room. The events of last night rushed back. The store, the rejection, the cowboy. Daniel. Clara stepped out into the main room. Daniel was already awake. He stood near the stove, pouring coffee into 2 tin cups as if this was just another ordinary day. "You're up," he said without turning. Clara nodded. "I should go," she replied quietly. "I've already taken more than I should." Daniel handed her a cup. "You've taken a meal," he said. "Not a lifetime." She hesitated, then accepted the cup. The warmth seeped into her hands. "I don't want people talking," she added. Daniel gave a small, almost amused breath. "They already do." Clara looked up. "What do you mean?" Daniel finally turned to face her. Small towns don't need facts, he said. Just something to talk about. A knot formed in Clara's stomach again, but this time, it wasn't hunger. It was fear. I should leave before it gets worse, she said. Daniel shook his head slightly. Running doesn't stop people from talking. He took a sip of his coffee. It just gives them a better story. Clara fell silent. She knew he was right. After a moment, she placed the cup down. I need to go back, she said. To town. Daniel studied her. You sure? She nodded. I can't hide out here. Daniel didn't argue. Instead, he grabbed his hat and reached for his coat. Then I'll come with you. Clara blinked. That's not necessary. It is, he said simply. And just like that, they left together. The ride back felt different. The same road, the same dust, but something had changed. Clara wasn't walking alone anymore. As the town came into view, her chest tightened. People were already out, moving, talking, watching. And when they saw her, they stopped. Not all at once, but enough. Eyes followed her. Whispers started. Clara kept her gaze forward, her grip tightening on the basket Daniel had filled that morning. Bread, beans, a little dried meat, enough for days. Then someone spoke loud enough to be heard. Well, look who found herself a cowboy. A few chuckles followed. Clara's cheeks burned, but she didn't stop walking. Daniel did. He turned slowly, his eyes scanning the small group gathered near the saloon. No anger, no raised voice, just a calm, steady look. The kind that made men second-guess themselves. The laughter faded quickly. Problem? Daniel asked. Silence. Then one man shrugged. Just make it. Not. Then keep it respectful. No one answered. Clara exhaled quietly and kept walking. Daniel followed beside her. They reached the general store. The same place. The same porch. The same man behind the counter. Clara stopped. Her feet refused to move forward. Daniel glanced at her. You don't have to go in, he said. Clara shook her head. Yes, I do. She stepped up onto the porch. Each creak of the wood felt louder than the last. The storekeeper looked up. Surprise flickered across his face. Then something else. Discomfort. You're back, he said. Clara straightened her shoulders. I came to settle part of my debt. She placed a small bundle of coins on the counter. Daniel's coins. The man looked at them, then at her. Where'd you get this? Before Clara could answer, Daniel stepped forward. Does it matter? The storekeeper shifted slightly. I didn't ask you. Daniel met his gaze. You're talking to her like she owes you more than money. Tension filled the room. I run a business, the storekeeper said defensively. Not a charity. Daniel nodded. Fair enough. He gestured toward the shelves. But don't pretend you're starving. The man's face tightened. Clara spoke quickly. I'm not here to argue, she said. I just want to pay what I can. The storekeeper hesitated, then slowly took the coins. This doesn't clear your debt, he muttered. I know. Clara turned to leave, but just as she reached the door. Wait, she froze. There's been talk, the storekeeper said. Clara closed her eyes briefly. Of course there had. You staying with him now? He asked, glancing toward Daniel. Clara turned back slowly. No, she said, firmly. I'm standing on my own. Daniel didn't interrupt. The storekeeper leaned forward slightly. Because people are starting to wonder what you're giving in return. The words hit like a slap. Silence fell, heavy, unforgiving. Clara's hands trembled slightly, but she didn't look away. I owe him nothing, she said. Daniel stepped forward again. This time, his voice dropped lower. Colder. You got something to say, he said. Say it straight. The storekeeper hesitated. For a moment, it looked like he might push further. But then he backed down. Just saying what people are already thinking. Daniel leaned in slightly. Then maybe people should start thinking better. Another silence. Then Daniel stepped back. Come on, he said to Clara. They walked out together. Outside, the whispers had grown. But this time, Clara didn't lower her head. She walked straight through them. Halfway down the street, she stopped. I can't do this, she said. Daniel frowned slightly. Do what? Live like this, she said. Being judged, watched, talked about like I'm nothing. Daniel looked at her carefully. You're not nothing. I know that, she said. But they don't. A long pause. Clara looked down at the basket in her hands. Then back at him. I need to fix my life, she said. For real this time. Daniel nodded slowly. What are you thinking? Clara took a breath. There's an old laundry house near the edge of town, she said. It's been closed for years. Daniel listened. I could reopen it, she continued. Do washing, sewing, whatever people need. Daniel considered it. That could work. Clara's eyes filled with a small spark of hope. But I don't have the money, she admitted. Daniel reached into his coat again. Clara immediately shook her head. No. He paused. Then, for the first time, he smiled slightly. Good, he said, because I wasn't going to give it to you. Clara blinked. What? I'll invest, he said. You pay me back when it works. She stared at him. That's still help. Yeah, he said, but this time, it's yours too. Clara looked at the town around her. The same people, the same whispers, the same judgment. But something inside her had changed. All right, she said finally. Daniel nodded once. Then let's get to work. As they walked toward the edge of town, the whispers didn't stop, but they didn't matter as much anymore. Because this time, Clara wasn't just surviving, she was starting over. Shadows from the past. The old laundry house stood at the edge of town like a forgotten memory. Its windows were dusty. The wooden boards creaked with every gust of wind. The sign above the door hung crooked, barely readable. But to Clara, it looked like a second chance. This place hasn't been touched in years, she said, pushing the door open slowly. Dust swirled in the air as sunlight poured in behind her. Daniel stepped in after her, glancing around. It's got good bones, he said. Just needs work. Clara walked further inside, her fingers brushing across an old wooden table. I can fix this, she whispered. And for the first time, she believed it. The next few days changed everything. They worked from sunrise to sunset. Cleaning, repairing, rebuilding. Daniel fixed broken boards and patched the roof. Clara scrubbed every surface, washed old fabrics, and reorganized what little remained. Slowly, the place came back to life. But the town was watching. Near the saloon, the same group of men gathered again. Only this time, their laughter wasn't light. It was sharper, bitter. She thinks she's better now, one of them muttered. All because that cowboy stepped in. Another man spat into the dirt. Won't last. Across the street, the storekeeper stood quietly, arms crossed. Watching, calculating. Back at the laundry house, Clara hung a freshly washed cloth outside to dry. The wind caught it gently, making it sway like a small flag of hope. Daniel stepped beside her. You're doing good, he said. Clara smiled faintly. I forgot what it feels like to build something. Before Daniel could respond, a horse's hooves echoed down the road. Fast, heavy, unfamiliar. Both of them turned. A rider approached, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed cleaner than most men in town, but there was something rough beneath the surface. Something dangerous. Clara froze. The color drained from her face. Daniel noticed immediately. You know him? He asked quietly. Clara didn't answer, because she didn't need to. The man pulled his horse to a stop just a few feet away. His eyes locked onto Clara. And then, he smiled. Well, he said slowly, if it isn't Clara Hayes. Clara's hands trembled. Ethan. Daniel's expression hardened slightly. Ethan dismounted, dusting off his coat like he owned the ground beneath him. "Been a long time," he said. "Didn't expect to find you here." Clara took a small step back. "You shouldn't be here," Ethan chuckled. "And miss this," he said, glancing around the laundry house. "You playing businesswoman now?" Daniel stepped forward, placing himself slightly between them. "You got business here?" he asked calmly. Ethan's eyes shifted to him, measured him, smiled again. "And you are?" "Doesn't matter," Daniel replied. Ethan let out a quiet laugh. "Oh, it matters," he said. "Because last I checked, she belongs to me." The air went still. Daniel didn't move, but something in his posture changed. "Say that again," he said. Clara stepped forward quickly. "No," she said firmly. "I don't belong to anyone." Ethan's smile faded just a little. "You sure about that?" he asked. "Because you left without settling things." Clara's voice shook, but she didn't back down. "I left because you gave me no choice." Daniel's eyes flicked toward her. He didn't interrupt, but now, he understood. Ethan took a step closer. "You think you can just walk away?" he said. "After everything I did for you." Clara's eyes filled with anger now. "You didn't do anything for me," she said. "You controlled me." The tension snapped tight. Ethan's expression darkened. "Careful," he warned. "You're forgetting who helped you survive. And you're forgetting," Clara shot back, "why I had to run." Silence. Daniel stepped forward fully now. "That's enough," he said. Ethan turned to him slowly. "And what are you going to do about it?" Daniel met his gaze. "Whatever's necessary." For a moment, it looked like things might turn violent. Then Ethan smiled again, but this time, it wasn't friendly. "Relax," he said, raising his hand slightly. "I'm not here to fight." Clara didn't believe him. Neither did Daniel. "I just came to collect what's mine," Ethan added. Clara's heart pounded. "I don't owe you anything." Ethan tilted his head. "Don't you?" He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded paper. Daniel's eyes narrowed. Ethan held it up. "A debt agreement," he said. "Signed by you." Clara's face went pale. "You remember now?" Ethan asked softly. Daniel looked at her. "Is it real?" Clara swallowed hard. "Yes." Silence fell again. Ethan folded the paper carefully. "You see," he said, "you don't just get to start over." Daniel stepped closer. "How much?" Clara looked at him quickly. "No." Ethan smirked. "Oh, it's not about the money anymore." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Then what?" Ethan's eyes returned to Clara. "I want her to come back," he said. The words hit like thunder. Clara shook her head immediately. "No." Ethan shrugged. "Then I take everything you're building here." He glanced around the laundry house. "I'll shut this place down before it even opens." Daniel stepped forward again. "You don't get to decide that." Ethan leaned in slightly. "Watch me." The wind picked up again, rattling the loose boards of the building. Clara stood frozen between them. Past and future. Then, slowly, she stepped forward. "No," she said. Both men looked at her. "I'm not going back," she continued. "Not to you. Not to that life." Ethan's expression hardened. "Then you better be ready to lose everything." Clara lifted her chin. For the first time, her voice steadied. "I'm ready to fight for it." A long silence followed. Ethan studied her carefully. Then he nodded once. "All right," he said. "We'll do it your way." He mounted his horse again. But before leaving, he looked at Daniel. "You picked a hard fight, Cowboy," he said. Daniel didn't flinch. "Good." Ethan smirked one last time. Then rode off. The dust settled slowly behind him. Clara's legs gave slightly, but Daniel caught her before she fell. "It's not over," she whispered. Daniel looked toward the road Ethan had taken. "I know." Then he looked back at her. "But neither are you." Clara took a deep breath. her hands still trembling, but her eyes stronger than before. Because this time, she wasn't running. When the storm hits, the next morning felt different. Not calm, not hopeful, heavy. Clara stood outside the laundry house, staring at the sign she had just straightened the night before. Now, it hung loose again. One side of the rope had been cut clean through. Her stomach dropped. "Daniel," she called quietly. He stepped out from inside, wiping his hands on a cloth. "What is it?" Clara pointed. Daniel's eyes narrowed instantly. He walked up, examining the rope. "This wasn't the wind," he said. Clara didn't respond. She didn't need to. They both knew who it was. Ethan. That was only the beginning. By midday, things got worse. A delivery of clean water Clara had arranged never arrived. A man she had spoken to about bringing clothes for washing suddenly changed his mind. And by evening, someone had scattered dirt and waste across the freshly cleaned floor inside the laundry house. Clara stood in the doorway, staring at the mess. Her hands trembled again, not from fear this time. From anger. "They won't stop," she said quietly. Daniel stepped beside her. "Then neither do we." Clara looked at him. "But how?" she asked. "He's turning everyone against me." Daniel glanced toward the town. "Not everyone." Clara frowned slightly. Daniel pointed down the road. An older woman approached slowly, carrying a bundle of clothes. Clara blinked in surprise. "Mrs. Carter." The woman gave a small nod. "I heard you're working again," she said. Clara stepped forward quickly. "Yes, I am." Mrs. Carter handed her the bundle. "Then I'd like these washed." Clara hesitated. "You know what people are saying." The woman shrugged lightly. "People talk," she said. "Clothes still get dirty." For a moment, Clara didn't know what to say. "Thank you," she whispered. Mrs. Carter glanced briefly at Daniel. "Not everyone's blind," she added. Then she turned and walked away. Clara looked down at the bundle in her hands. Her first real customer. Daniel smiled faintly. "Told you." But the victory didn't last long. By sunset, 3 men showed up. The same ones from outside the saloon. They didn't knock. They walked straight in. "Nice place," one of them said, kicking lightly at a wooden bucket. "Shame if something happened to it." Clara stepped forward immediately. "Get out." The men laughed. "We're just here to talk," another said. Daniel moved into the room, his presence quiet but solid. "Then talk from outside." The first man looked at him. "And if we don't?" Daniel didn't raise his voice. Didn't step closer. "I'll make you." The room went still. The men exchanged glances. They expected fear. Or anger. Not this. "Big words," one muttered. Daniel tilted his head slightly. "Try me." A long pause. Then, slowly, the men backed off. "Not worth it," one said under his breath. They turned and walked out. But not before throwing one last look at Clara. "This isn't over." The door slammed behind them. Clara exhaled shakily. "They're going to keep coming," she said. Daniel nodded. "Yeah." She looked at him. "Why aren't you afraid?" Daniel didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked over to the corner of the room and pulled back an old cloth. Underneath was a rifle, well kept, loaded. Clara's eyes widened slightly. "I don't go looking for trouble," Daniel said calmly. He picked up the rifle, checking it with practiced ease. "But I don't run from it either." There was something different about him now. Something sharper, more dangerous. "You've done this before," Clara said quietly. Daniel looked at her. For a moment, that old distance returned to his eyes. "Yeah," he said. Clara swallowed. "Who are you, Daniel?" A long silence followed. Then he answered. "Someone who learned the hard way, what happens when you don't fight back." Clara nodded slowly. For the first time, she realized something important. Daniel wasn't just kind. He was strong. And if Ethan thought he could break them, he was about to learn otherwise. Night fell. The lantern inside the laundry house flickered softly. Clara sat at the table, washing Mrs. Carter's clothes carefully, every movement steady, focused. Outside, the wind picked up again. Then, hoofbeats. Daniel stood instantly. The door burst open. A young boy stumbled inside, breathless. They set fire. He gasped. Clara stood up. What? The back shed. The boy shouted. It's burning. Clara ran outside. Flames licked the night sky behind the laundry house. The small storage shed, where she had kept supplies, was already half consumed. No, 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 she whispered. Daniel grabbed a bucket instantly. Water, he shouted. Clara snapped out of it and ran to help. They worked together, throwing water, dirt, anything they could. The fire fought back, but slowly, bit by bit, they pushed it down, until finally, only smoke remained. Clara stood there, breathing hard, staring at what was left. Half her supplies, gone. Tears filled her eyes, but this time, they didn't fall. Behind her, Daniel stepped forward. His voice was low, controlled. That's it. Clara turned. There was something in his eyes now she hadn't seen before. Not just determination. War. He crossed the line, Daniel said. Clara shook her head quickly. No, if you go after him, it'll only get worse. Daniel looked at her. It's already worse. Silence. Clara's voice softened. I don't want to lose this, she said. Not like this. Daniel stepped closer. You won't. She searched his face. How can you be so sure? Daniel's jaw tightened slightly. Because I've lost everything before, he said. A pause. And I'm not letting it happen again. The wind carried the last of the smoke into the dark sky. Clara looked at the burned remains of the shed, then back at the laundry house, then at Daniel, and something inside her settled. Then we fight, she said. Daniel nodded once. Together. The day the town chose. The town woke early that morning. Not because of work, not because of routine, but because word had spread. There's gonna be trouble. People gathered slowly along the main street, outside the saloon, near the general store, even by the edge of town, where the laundry house stood. Clara didn't sleep that night. She stood outside what remained of her shed, staring at the damage. But something was different now. She wasn't broken. She was ready. Daniel stepped out of the laundry house just as the sun began to rise. His rifle rested in his hand. Not raised, not aimed, but ready. You don't have to do this, Clara said quietly. Daniel looked at her. Yes, I do. Before she could respond, hoofbeats. Slow, confident, deliberate. Ethan. He rode into view with two men behind him. Not hiding, not sneaking. He wanted everyone to see. Well, Ethan called out as he approached, looks like you're still standing. Clara stepped forward. I told you, she said. I'm not going anywhere. Ethan smirked. We'll see about that. Daniel moved beside her. You've done enough, he said calmly. Ethan's eyes flicked toward the rifle. Then back to Daniel. What are you gonna do, cowboy? He asked. Shoot me in front of the whole town. Daniel didn't answer. By now, people had gathered behind them, watching, whispering, waiting. Clara turned slightly, looking at the crowd. The same people who had ignored her, judged her, turned her away. Her voice rose, clear, strong. I asked this town for help once, she said. The whispers quieted. No one stepped forward. The storekeeper shifted uncomfortably. I almost didn't survive because of that, she continued. Silence spread. But I'm still here, Clara said. And I built this, myself. Ethan scoffed. With his help, he added. Clara didn't deny it. Yes, she said. He helped me. Then she looked straight at the crowd. But he didn't save me. A pause. I chose to stand. The words landed. And now, she said, her voice steady, I'm asking again. Everyone watched her. Not for money, she continued. Not for pity. Another pause. But for what's right. She gestured toward the burned shed. He did this, she said, pointing at Ethan. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Ethan laughed lightly. Can you prove it? Clara didn't answer. Instead, a voice came from behind. I can. Heads turned. The young boy from the night before stepped forward. Nervous, but determined. I saw him, the boy said, pointing at Ethan. He lit the fire. Gasps. Ethan's smile faded slightly. You believe a child, he snapped. Then another voice spoke. And I saw his men hanging around last night. It was Mrs. Carter. More murmurs. Then, another voice. And I heard him threaten her yesterday. One by one, people stepped forward. The same people who had stayed silent before. Now speaking. The storekeeper looked down at his hands. Then slowly, he stepped forward too. I didn't help her when I should have, he admitted. Clara looked at him, surprised. But I won't stay quiet now, he added. Ethan's expression darkened completely. This is a mistake, he warned. All of you. Daniel stepped forward slightly. No, he said. A pause. This is a choice. The crowd stood together now. No longer whispering. No longer hiding. United. Ethan looked around, realizing something. He had lost. Not by force. Not by fear. But by truth. He clenched his jaw, then turned his horse sharply. This isn't over, he muttered. Daniel's voice stopped him. It is. Ethan hesitated, then rode off. His men followed, and just like that, the storm passed. Silence filled the air again. But this time, it felt different, lighter. Clara stood there, looking at the people around her. Then at Daniel. You didn't fight, she said softly. Daniel shook his head. Didn't need to. Clara smiled faintly. For the first time, not out of relief, but out of strength. Days later, the laundry house reopened. Not perfectly, not completely rebuilt, but alive. Customers came, more than before, not out of pity, but respect. And every time someone walked through that door, Clara remembered the day she almost gave up. And the man, who refused to look away. Daniel never asked for anything in return. He just stayed, worked, helped, and slowly, without either of them saying it, they built something more than just a business. They built a life. Please friends, spot my channel, subscribe for more stories.